Greetings. It is Monday, May the 18th, in the rather eventful year of 2026. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Monday Morning Report. Well, the Iran war is kicking up again soon, perhaps real soon, perhaps by the time you hear this recording. Oil prices continue to play havoc with the world economy. But they're fake. Let's put it that way. Another case of people making lots of money off of speculation. The United States does not get any oil through the Straits of Hormuz. A lot of people are coming to the U.S. for our oil, though corporate capitalism being what it is. Well, food prices will be going up over the next several months on account that diesel fuel is used to produce crops as well as transport food to market. So I would start stockpiling food, folks, the stuff that doesn't go bad too easy. As soon as this war in the Middle East is done, prices will return to what is more or less normal. The speculation will stop and the world will go bumbling on. By the way, do you know how long the Suez Canal was closed? It was closed for several years, from the late 60s to the early 70s, and people were hemming and hawing that the world economy would collapse, but it didn't. Let me tell you something about business people. They tend to get into understanding risk. The Straits of Hormuz has always been a risk. Iran has always been a risk. The Middle East is run by crazy people much of the time. This is all factored in. So we're not going to, collapse, but we are going to be paying through the nose for petroleum, which is what our civilization runs on. Like it or not, we are an oil-using world, and that's not going to change no matter how many propellers you put on mountaintops or solar panels you put on farmers' fields. Oil is what rules the day, and that's what we're going to have, but we really do have plenty of it. Now, in spite of what you're hearing or watching on cable TV, Iran is desperate. They're pretty much done. Oil is not being sold by them in any quantity or flowing on the international markets. In fact, it's being dumped in the Persian Gulf. This is not something that's being covered too much, folks, but I've been seeing video coming out of that part of the world through various sources. And there's also a chance that they might be stopping the pumps at the wellheads in the oil fields of Iran. Now, if that happens, it may be hard to start pumping the oil fields again. In some cases, according to what I've been reading, it might not even be possible to start the oil flowing. It's been flowing for a very, very long time, many, many decades. This could turn one of the most oil-rich countries on earth into, not much more than a nation of rug merchants again. We'll see if that happens, but indications are that the disruption of Iran's oil industry could take years or even decades to recover, if ever. Sadly, the Iranian diaspora were hoping that the military there would have had a coup by now, but they haven't. It's probably because of nearly half a century of living under fear. That is a way of taking the fight out of men, even ones that like to be as boisterous as people in the Middle East. But reality is that they're running out of time. So if you're listening to me and you're in Iran and you're in the military, please overthrow these nutcases that have been ruining your civilization, your culture, and massacring your own citizens. Other than that, you might lose this oil money that, you've been used to for quite a long time. One bright side of this whole thing is, of course, the situation in Cuba. You know, that nasty little example of communist stupidity, incompetence, and cruelty just off of Florida. Well, it's on the ropes. You're not getting that in the mainstream media either. They're really, really, really down in the dirt. And I'm sorry, I'm grinning this whole time. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. Not the citizens, namely. Cubans are wonderful people, but those running that country, whoo-hoo. Yeah, this is fun to watch. And there's a good chance that government will collapse just in time for the midterm elections. It's that bad down there now. What was keeping the place going was free oil from Venezuela. Remember back in the day I was telling you this play for Venezuela had Cuba tied to it, and I guess I was right. Now, that, of course, has stopped because Venezuela was giving free oil to Cuba, and nobody's giving Cuba anything for free. I think Putin sent a tanker out of the kindness of his heart, such as it is, but you haven't heard much since then. The Cubans have no money, they have no food, nothing to export to speak of to get either. Cuba is effectively an economic dead zone. And if it wasn't for many of its citizens receiving money from relatives overseas, it would be even worse, if you could imagine that. Lots of people who have inflicted so many years of misery and pain on the people of that country, and of course have tried to export their revolution to other places like South America and Africa, well, they need to hang, and I mean that quite literally. And well, they probably will, as I doubt there are any countries out there that will want to take them in. Well, maybe North Korea would, but that would be a pretty cold place in winter if you're used to the Caribbean. I mean, you ever been on the Korean Peninsula? It's cold in winter. I mean, it's cold in April. Even then, North Korea is not going to last forever either, and I'll bet you that's going to be next on the list. But we'll see what 2027 brings. Now, I, for one, can't wait to see the Cuban regime fall. I've known many Cubans over the years. Hell, I went to high school with a bunch of Cubans who had fled the country. And boy, did they have some interesting stories. I'd also bet that even money, Fidel Castro's tomb will be desecrated badly. Yeah, I don't think they'll keep that when things have finally come home to roost. Perhaps they'll dump the old boy in the ocean. Bay of Pigs? That would be very, very poetic, wouldn't it? Well, we'll see how it goes in Cuba, but watch it carefully. I don't think they'll survive the year. And speaking of failed CIA operations, the governess of Virginia continues to get pummeled by the system. You ever notice that the American system of government is kind of like something out of an Indiana Jones movie? If you step in the wrong place or pick up the wrong thing, these ancient gears and wheels and sand starts to pour and it ends up crushing the bad guy. Well, that's what I think we're seeing in Virginia. One word: overreach. People like the governess and her cronies think they have the right to lord over the rest of us and know what's best for us, etc., etc. People like them have always gone too far when they get real power. And it always eventually slaps them down, like a rubber band that's been stretched too far. It stings like hell when it flies back on you and hits you on the wrist. Now, the Democratic Party-centric gerrymandering plan has failed. The U.S. Supreme Court has refused to hear the case, so the Commonwealth Supreme Court decision stands, and they are not going to be getting their extra seats in Congress by, rather nefarious means. Now, what this lady's going to do is, on the other side, is trying to impose, and she just signed into law, over-the-top gun control laws that state and local law enforcement think is insane. If you talk to any police officers, they think the whole thing is nuts, and they're not exactly going to go door to door to try to confiscate weapons. That would be insane, and people would be killed. Lots of lawsuits have already been filed. The Virginia Citizens Defense League, Gun Owners of America, you name them, a bunch of people are suing. And I predict that given the way these laws have been put together and how little support there is for them, even among moderates in Virginia, I predict it will meet the same fate as this other gerrymandering attempt that they had. Now, one other thing that is quite refreshing to see that's a byproduct of this entire left-wing Democratic fiasco, what really is nice to see is that the people of Virginia have a renewed interest in politics. Really, they do. And they're organizing at local and statewide levels at the way I didn't think I'd be seeing for some time, if ever. It seems a sleeping giant has been awakened. I love it when that happens because usually the bad guys end up fleeing for their existence. And when such things start to move, when people have said enough and they start trying to fight back, it's like an avalanche, trying to stop an avalanche, and that doesn't usually go too well. Old Dominion, which is the classic name for Virginia, the oldest government in the Western Hemisphere of planet Earth, by the way, here where there's a history of rebellion and putting up a hell of a fight when needed, whether it be the American Revolution or the Civil War, they have a habit of striking back. somewhat ruthlessly. Now, I don't think there's going to be anything like that happening, but I'm talking about organizing, voting, putting people in office. I really do see that they're going to take a peaceful approach, but it's going to be a ruthlessly peaceful approach. It looks like the fight is back in the hearts of people here, and it's going to happen again. This summer could get interesting, so look to the old Dominion to be leading the way throughout the country. I think Americans have had enough, and when people have had enough, they don't sit still. And speaking of revolution, we're only a few weeks away from the United States celebrating its 250th birthday, a quarter of a millennium. Wow. And it seems like just the other day I was attending the 200th birthday, the bicentennial as a kid. I remember seeing the Freedom Train when it came through town, fife and drum corps everywhere, three-sided hats, the old stuff. I grew up in New England where, George Washington literally slept down the street from where I grew up. It was a very different country back then and a very different time. There were some good things about it, some bad, of course, but there were some real good things about it, and that is we were a much more sane nation, and we had a good idea of who we were and where we were going, at least we thought. Now, Americans have, in my opinion, forgotten who they are and where they came from. The lack of education among younger people, I've noticed over the years, is shocking and quite sickening to the extreme, really. It's interesting how we knew more back in 1976, before Jimmy Carter, cursed be his name, created the infamous Department of Education, which was an institution that turned out to be as contradictory as the Ministry of Truth in George Orwell's 1984. A great thing that Donald Trump has done is to get rid of that institution effectively. It needs to be buried 20 feet under, not 6. As we battle the forces of darkness in our land, namely woke liberalism and the Democratic Party, I have a recommendation for those of you out there who maybe should take some time out and travel a little bit. Read and refamiliarize yourself with who you really are as Americans, who your ancestors were, why they settled this continent, what they came from, what they gave up, and what they risked. And in many places, they lost everything. What they sacrificed to give us, a future. And think of ways you can honor that future. Go off to the old Civil War, Revolutionary War battlefields. Read about them. And when you go to these places, talk to the guides. A lot of them are volunteers. I myself have also signed up to be a volunteer at some of these places. Maybe you'll meet me this summer sometime. But it's important to know who you are and where you're going. But in order to know where you're going, you have to know who you are. The United States has been around for a quarter of a millennium now. That's a long time. Not been an easy time much of the time either. We've had some terrible conflicts. The Vietnam War was really the closest we've been to a civil war, not now, but back then, since the one that broke out in the 1860s, a war that was driven by economics, but in the end of the day was to set people free. And people are not really interested in learning facts, but they're available there if you want to find them. No, I think it's important to start planning your summer. Make this a summer to refamiliarize yourself with the United States of America, its people, its culture, or I should say cultures, because we have more than one here, and immerse yourself in it. You'll be better for it, and our country will be better for it as well. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies. And we all have enemies. Just be sure you know who they are and keep your friends closer. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. I am on other social media platforms, but not Facebook. Never Facebook. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com, and please consider a paid subscription. It keeps the lights on and the gas tank full. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, And remember, Clown World, the deep state, and all anti-Americanism must be destroyed. And for those of you here in Virginia, never forget, sic semper tyrannis. Good day.